The forest was unusually quiet that morning. Not the peaceful kind of quiet, but something deeper. Something that made even the wind hesitate. Armin had worked as a forester for nearly 15 years. He knew every sound, every rustle, every hidden rhythm of the woods. But today felt different. He paused near an old oak tree, scanning the path ahead. That's when he saw her, an old woman. She stood still, almost blending into the forest itself. Her clothes were worn, faded by time, and her posture slightly bent. But her presence felt strong. Too strong. Armin frowned. No one came this deep into the forest without a reason. "Ma'am," he called out carefully. No response. He took a few steps closer. "Are you lost?" The woman slowly turned her head. Her eyes met his. And for a moment, Armin felt something he couldn't explain. Not fear, not danger, but recognition, as if he had seen those eyes before. The woman gave a faint smile. "I was waiting," she said softly. Her voice was fragile, yet steady. Armin blinked. "Waiting? For who?" She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she lifted the small bag hanging from her shoulder. It looked old, very old. The kind of bag someone carries not for convenience, but for meaning. "For you," she said. Armin's chest tightened slightly. For me? That didn't make sense. He had never seen this woman before. At least, he thought he hadn't. The forest seemed to grow quieter. Even the birds had stopped. Armin hesitated. "Do I know you?" The woman's smile deepened, but there was sadness in it. "You knew someone," she replied. That answer didn't help. It only made things more confusing. Armin glanced at the bag again. Something about it felt heavy, not physically, but emotionally. "Ma'am," he said gently, "you shouldn't be out here alone. It's not safe." The woman chuckled softly. "Safe," she repeated, as if the word itself carried a distant memory. Then she extended the bag toward him. "Take it." Armin didn't move. "I can't just take." "You need to see." Her voice changed. It wasn't fragile anymore. It was firm, certain, almost urgent. A strange feeling crept into Armin's chest. Curiosity, mixed with something else. Something deeper. He slowly reached out and took the bag. It was lighter than he expected, but his hands trembled slightly. "Open it," she said. Armin hesitated again. For reasons he couldn't explain, he suddenly felt nervous, as if whatever was inside would change something, irreversibly. He swallowed, then carefully opened the bag. At first, he didn't understand what he was looking at. Just a few old items. Worn, faded, ordinary. But then, his breath caught, his fingers froze, and his heart stopped, because lying inside the bag was something he hadn't seen in over 20 years. Something he thought was gone forever. A small wooden toy. Hand-carved, rough around the edges, but unmistakable. Armin staggered back slightly. "No," he whispered. His eyes widened. That's not possible." His hands began to shake, because he remembered. He remembered everything. The forest, the past, the promise, and the day everything changed. Slowly, he looked up at the old woman. But now, he wasn't seeing a stranger anymore. His voice broke. "Where did you get this?" The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, her eyes filled with tears. And for the first time, Armin noticed something else. Something he had missed before. A resemblance. Faint, but undeniable. His chest tightened. "No," he said again, softer this time. The woman stepped closer and whispered something that shattered him completely. "I kept it for you." Armin's knees nearly gave way, because in that moment, he realized a truth buried deep in time, a truth he had tried to forget, but never truly escaped. And now, it had come back. Armin couldn't take his eyes off the wooden toy. His fingers traced its rough edges slowly, carefully, like he was afraid it might disappear. "I made this," he whispered. His voice was barely audible. The forest around him felt distant now, like everything else had faded away. Only the past remained. The old woman watched him silently, her eyes filled with something deeper than sadness. "Memory. You were small," she said gently. Armin shut his eyes. And suddenly, he was no longer standing in the forest. He was a child again, running barefoot through the same trees, laughing, carefree, unaware of what life would take from him. There was a cabin, Armin murmured. His breathing became uneven, near the river, hidden between the pines. The woman nodded slowly. Yes. Armin's chest tightened. I used to go there every day. He paused, then corrected himself. No, not alone. His eyes opened, and they were no longer confused. They were filled with realization. There was someone else. The woman stepped closer, just one step, but it felt like years collapsing between them. You weren't alone, she said softly. Armin's grip on the toy tightened. His hands trembled more now, because the memories weren't gentle anymore. They were sharp, painful. I don't remember her face, he said. His voice cracked. I tried so many times, but it was always blurry. The woman's lips quivered slightly. But I remember her voice, he continued. She used to call me Little Wolf. A tear slipped down his cheek, and she would laugh when I got angry about it. The forest seemed to breathe again. A faint wind passed through the trees, carrying something with it, something heavy. You promised her something, the woman said quietly. Armin froze. His heart skipped. How do you know that? The woman didn't answer directly. Instead, she looked at the toy in his hands. You said you'd come back, she whispered. Armin staggered back as if struck. No, he said, but his voice lacked strength, because he remembered now. The promise, the one he broke. I was just a child, he said defensively. I didn't know. I couldn't. You forgot. The words weren't harsh, but they cut deeper than anger ever could. Armin lowered his head. Shame washed over him. I didn't mean to, he said. One day, I stopped coming. His breathing grew heavier. My father got transferred. We moved away. His voice faded, and life just kept going. Silence fell between them, but it wasn't empty. It was full of everything that was left unsaid. The woman finally spoke again. She waited. Armin's head snapped up. What? Every day, the woman continued, in that little cabin near the river. Her voice trembled now, but she never missed a day. Armin felt something break inside him. No, he whispered. She thought, maybe you were late, the woman said. Or maybe you got lost. Each word landed like a weight on his chest, so she waited longer. Armin's eyes filled with tears. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. And still, she waited. His legs felt weak. He leaned against a nearby tree for support. I didn't know, he said. I swear, I didn't know. The woman nodded slowly. I know. That answer surprised him. He looked at her, confused. You know? She gave a faint, tired smile. You were a child. Her voice carried no blame, only understanding. And somehow, that hurt even more. Armin looked down at the toy again. I made this for her, he said. I wanted to give it on her birthday. His lips trembled, but I never did. The woman's eyes closed briefly, as if holding back a storm of emotions. She kept it, she said. Armin's head jerked up. What? She found it the day after you left. Armin's breath hitched. I had dropped it near the river, he whispered. The woman nodded. She picked it up and held on to it. Armin couldn't speak. His throat felt tight. She said if she kept it safe, he would come back for it. A tear rolled down Armin's cheek. Then another, and another. I never came back, he said. His voice shattered completely. No, the woman replied softly. You didn't. The truth hung heavy in the air, unavoidable, unforgiving. Armin wiped his face with trembling hands. I would have, he said weakly, if I remembered, if I knew. The woman looked at him for a long moment, as if measuring something, not his words, but his heart. Then she took a deep breath and said something that changed everything again. She never blamed you. Armin froze. What? She said, if you forgot, it must mean you needed to. The simplicity of that thought broke him further. Who was she? He asked slowly. Even though Deep down, he already knew the answer was coming. The woman stepped closer, close enough that he could see every line on her face, every year of waiting, every silent moment of hope. Her voice trembled, but she didn't look away. Armin's world stopped. Everything. The forest, the wind, his breath. Gone. You, he whispered. The toy slipped slightly in his grip, but he caught it, just barely. You were her. The woman nodded, and for the first time, her tears fell freely. I waited, she said, not accusing, not angry, just stating a truth that had lived inside her for decades. Armin felt his knees give way. He dropped to the ground, not from weakness, but from the weight of realization. All those years, all that waiting, all that time, she had been alone, holding on to a promise he had forgotten. I'm sorry, he said, over and over again. I'm so sorry. But the words felt small, too small for something this big. The woman slowly knelt in front of him, with effort, with age, but also with purpose. Then she did something unexpected. She gently placed her hand on his head, just like she used to when he was a child. And in that moment, Armin wasn't a forester anymore. He was just that little boy again, lost, and finally found. Armin stayed on his knees, his head bowed, the old woman's hand still resting gently on his hair. Time seemed to stop for both of them, not because nothing was happening, but because everything was, all at once. I thought you forgot me, she said quietly. Armin's shoulders shook. I did, he admitted. The truth hurt more when spoken aloud, but not by choice. He looked up at her. Tears filled his eyes again. It's like my mind erased that part of my life. The woman nodded slowly, as if it was protecting you. Armin frowned slightly. Protecting me from what? The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked toward the deeper part of the forest, toward the direction of the old river, and the cabin. That cabin. It wasn't just a childhood memory, she said softly. It was the last happy place you had. Armin's breath caught. What do you mean? The woman hesitated. For the first time, she seemed unsure, as if what she was about to say carried weight, danger, or perhaps truth too heavy to reveal all at once. You don't remember what happened after you stopped coming, she said. Armin shook his head slowly. No, his voice lowered. I only remember leaving and then nothing. The woman closed her eyes briefly, then opened them again, filled with something deeper now, not just sadness, but pain. Your father came back, she said. Armin stiffened. My father? Her gaze stayed steady. Yes. A strange tension filled the air. Armin's heartbeat quickened. That doesn't make sense, he said. He told me we left immediately, that we never returned. The woman gave a faint, bitter smile. That's what he told you. Armin's chest tightened. Then what really happened? The wind picked up slightly. Leaves rustled around them, as if the forest itself was reacting. The woman leaned a little closer. Her voice dropped to almost a whisper. He came back alone. Armin felt a chill run down his spine. Why? The woman's hands trembled slightly now, but she didn't stop. He was looking for you. Armin blinked, but I was already with him. No. The word cut through everything. Clear, sharp, final. You weren't. Silence. Heavy, unbearable. Armin stared at her. Confusion turned into something darker, something closer to fear. What are you saying? He asked slowly. The woman took a shaky breath. The day you stopped coming. Her voice cracked slightly. You didn't go home. Armin's heart pounded. Loud. Fast. Impossible to ignore. I what? You stayed in the forest. Every word felt unreal, like a story that didn't belong to him. That's not true, he said quickly. It can't be. But deep down, something stirred. A fragment, a shadow of a memory. You were waiting for me, the woman continued. We had planned something that day. Armin's head began to ache, a dull pressure building behind his eyes. A surprise, she said. And suddenly, a flash, a quick, sharp image. A small boy, holding something behind his back, smiling, waiting. Armin gasped. I remember, he whispered. Barely, but it was there, faint, broken. But then his breathing became uneven, his hands clenched. Then what happened? The woman's eyes filled with tears again. You never made it to the cabin. Armin felt his stomach drop. Why? The answer came slowly, painfully. You fell. The word echoed in his mind. Fell? Near the river, she said. There's a steep edge hidden under leaves. Armin's head spun. Images flickered in his mind. Dark water, cold air, a sudden slip. I struggled to speak. I can't. You hit your head, she continued, and you didn't wake up. The world seemed to tilt. Armin grabbed onto the tree, beside him, trying to stay grounded. That's not possible, he said. I'm here. Yes, the woman said softly. You are. Her voice carried something strange, something that didn't fully match her words. Then what happened? Armin demanded, his voice louder now, desperate. The woman looked at him, really looked at him, as if seeing both who he was and who he had been. Your father found you, she said, hours later. Armin's breath slowed slightly. Relief flickered. So he saved me. The woman didn't respond immediately. That silence, it said everything. Armin's relief faded, replaced by dread. Tell me, he said. The woman swallowed, then spoke the words that changed everything. You weren't breathing. The forest went completely still. No wind, no sound, nothing. Armin stared at her, unmoving, unblinking. That's not, he started, but the words wouldn't come. They said you were gone, she continued, her voice shaking now. Your father carried you out of the forest. Tears streamed down her face, and he never came back. Armin's chest tightened violently. I'm standing right here, he said, almost angrily. Look at me. I am, she replied, softly, painfully. I've been looking at you for years. That sentence, it didn't make sense. And yet, it did, in the worst possible way. Armin looked down at his hands. They were trembling, but something felt off. Something he had never noticed before. I don't, he whispered. I don't understand. The woman reached for the bag again, slowly, carefully. There's one more thing, she said. Armin didn't move. Couldn't move. She opened the bag and pulled out something wrapped in cloth. Old, fragile. She held it out to him. Take it. His hands felt heavy as he reached forward. He unwrapped it, piece by piece, and when he saw what was inside, his breath stopped. It was a photograph, faded with time, edges worn, but still clear enough. Armin stared at it, his heart pounding louder than ever, because in that photo was a man holding a small boy in his arms, standing at the edge of the forest. The boy's eyes were closed, his body limp, lifeless, and the man was crying. Armin's hands began to shake uncontrollably. No, he whispered, his voice hollow. That's not me. But it was. He knew it. Deep down, he knew it. And suddenly, everything made sense. The forgotten memories, the missing years, the strange feeling of never truly belonging. Armin slowly looked up, his face pale, his eyes wide with realization. Then he asked a question he was almost afraid to hear answered. If I died, his voice broke. Then what am I now? The woman stepped closer, her expression filled with both sorrow and something else, something gentle, something almost comforting. And then she gave the answer. You came back? She whispered, because of your promise. Armin couldn't breathe, not because he lacked air, but because the truth had taken it away. You came back because of your promise. The words echoed inside him, again, and again, and again. His grip tightened around photograph, his fingers trembling uncontrollably. That's not possible, he said. But this time, even he didn't believe it. The woman watched him quietly. She didn't interrupt. She didn't rush him, because she knew this was the moment everything changed. Armin slowly stood up. His legs felt weak, unstable. like they didn't belong to him anymore. I lived, he said. I grew up, I worked, I spent years in this forest. His voice cracked. How can all of that be a lie? The woman shook her head gently. It wasn't a lie. Her voice was calm, soft, but it wasn't the life you think it was. Armin frowned, his mind struggling to keep up. Then what was it? The wind moved through the trees again, this time colder, heavier. Have you ever noticed, she began slowly, that no one ever stayed around you for long? Armin froze. A strange realization crept in. Faces, people, colleagues, all distant, all temporary. I thought that was just life, he said. The woman's eyes softened. You were never part of their world. The truth hit him harder than anything before. He stepped back, shaking his head. No, but you were never alone either, she added quickly. Armin stopped, confused. What do you mean? The woman looked around the forest. A faint smile appeared on her face. The forest knew you. Armin's breathing slowed. The animals never feared you. Her voice carried warmth now. The paths always led you where you needed to go. A memory surfaced. Dozens of them. Birds landing close. Deer standing still instead of running. Moments that once felt lucky, now felt different. You belonged here, she said. Between what was and what wasn't. Armin's chest tightened. Then why now, he asked. Why are you telling me all this now? The woman took a deep breath. Her strength seemed to fade for a moment. Because this part was the hardest. Because I'm running out of time. Armin's heart skipped. What do you mean? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she slowly sat down on a fallen log nearby. Her movements slower now. Heavier. I'm tired, she admitted softly. Armin stepped closer, instinctively. Concern replaced confusion. You shouldn't be out here, he said. You need rest. You need help. The woman smiled faintly. I don't need help anymore. Those words, they felt final. Too final. Armin knelt in front of her, just like he had as a child. What are you saying? He asked, his voice trembling again. The woman looked at him, really looked at him, as if memorizing his face. I waited my whole life, she said, her voice fragile now, but not for you to come back as you were. Armin's chest ached. Then for what? She reached out and gently placed her hand over his. For you to remember. A tear slid down his cheek. I remember now, he said. I remember everything. The woman nodded. And that means... She paused, her breath unsteady. Your promise is still unfinished. Armin's eyes widened. My promise... He looked down at the wooden toy again, then back at her. I was supposed to give this to you. His voice softened. On your birthday. The woman smiled through her tears. You already did. Armin blinked, confused. No, I never. You came that day, she interrupted gently. Not in the way you planned. Her fingers tightened slightly around his hand. But you came. Armin's heart pounded again. After your father took you. Her voice shook. I found you one last time. The air grew heavy. Emotion pressing from every side. You were lying near the river. Tears streamed down her face freely now. And in your hand, she looked at the toy. You were still holding it. Armin's breath caught. His vision blurred. I couldn't let it go, she whispered, because it was the only proof that you kept your promise. Armin broke completely. Tears fell without restraint. I'm sorry, he said again. I left you alone for so long. The woman shook her head gently. No, her voice was barely above a whisper. You stayed. Armin looked at her, confused. What? You just didn't know it. Silence wrapped around them. But this time, it wasn't heavy. It was soft, almost peaceful. The woman slowly lifted her other hand and placed it against his cheek, just like she used to when he was a boy. You don't need to stay anymore, she said. Armin's heart clenched. The meaning behind those words. It was clear, painfully clear. If I leave, he whispered, what happens to you? The woman smiled, a real smile this time, warm, gentle. I won't be waiting anymore. Armin's eyes filled again. That's what you wanted, right? She nodded for a very long time. The forest seemed to change around them, the light shifting slightly, softer, brighter, as if something unseen was preparing. Armin looked at her one last time, every detail, every line, every memory, burning it into himself. I don't want to forget again, he said. You won't, she replied, her voice certain. Not this time. Armin took a deep breath, even though he didn't need to. Not really. Then he slowly placed a wooden toy back into her hands, where it always belonged. Happy birthday, he said. The woman's lips trembled, tears falling freely. But she was smiling, truly smiling. Thank you, little wolf. And in that moment, something shifted. Deep, unseen, final. The forest felt different now. Not quiet, not heavy, but calm, as if it had been waiting for this moment. Armin stood still, facing her, not as a forester, not as a lost soul, but as the boy who had finally remembered. The woman held the wooden toy close to her chest, like something sacred, something that had carried her through a lifetime. I used to imagine this moment, she said softly. Her voice carried no sadness now, only warmth. And now that it's here, she looked at him, her eyes shining. It feels even more beautiful than I hoped. Armin tried to speak, but words felt unnecessary. Everything that mattered had already been said. The wind moved gently through the trees, no longer cold, no longer distant. It felt welcoming, like a quiet invitation. Will it hurt? Armin asked suddenly. The question came from somewhere deep, somewhere human. The woman shook her head. No, she smiled. It will feel like going home. Armin closed his eyes. For a moment, just a moment, and he felt it. Not fear, not regret, but something he hadn't felt in years. Peace. I was so confused, he admitted. I kept searching for something, but I didn't know what it was. The woman nodded. You were searching for this. She gently tapped his chest. For the truth. Armin opened his eyes again, and now that I found it, he hesitated. I have to leave it behind. The woman's expression softened. You're not leaving it behind. She said it with certainty. You're taking it with you. Armin let those words settle, and for the first time, they didn't hurt. They healed. He looked around the forest. Every tree, every path, every quiet corner. All of it felt familiar, because it had been his home, for longer than he ever realized. Will anyone remember me? He asked. The question lingered in the air. The woman smiled gently. I will. Armin's throat tightened. And that's enough. She nodded. It always was. Silence followed, but it wasn't empty. It was full of everything they had shared, everything they had lost, and everything they had finally found again. The light around them began to shift, soft, golden, almost unreal. Armin noticed it too. He looked down at his hands. They were different, fading, slowly, like mist under sunlight. So this is it, he whispered. The woman stood up slowly, with effort, but also with strength he hadn't seen before. This time, she didn't look fragile. She looked whole. Yes, she said, this is it. Armin felt no fear now, only a quiet understanding, a gentle acceptance. He took a step closer to her, then another, until there was no distance left between them. For a moment, they simply stood there, looking at each other, not as strangers, not as lost memories, but as two souls who had finally completed something unfinished. I'm glad you came back, she said. Armin smiled faintly. I never really left. The woman let out a soft laugh, and it sounded just like it did years ago. Warm, light, full of life. Goodbye, little wolf, she whispered. Armin's eyes softened. Goodbye. The word felt different this time, not like an ending, but like a release. The light grew brighter, wrapping around him gently, carefully, like it didn't want to rush him. His form continued to fade, piece by piece. But something strange happened. As he disappeared, he didn't feel like he was losing himself. He felt like he was becoming whole. At last, before he was completely gone, He said one last thing. Thank you for waiting. The woman closed her eyes. A single tear rolled down her cheek, but she was smiling. I'd wait again, she whispered. And then he was gone, not vanished, not lost, but finally at peace. The forest exhaled. The wind moved softly through the trees, as if carrying his presence somewhere far beyond. The woman stood there alone, but she didn't feel alone anymore. She looked down at the wooden toy in her hands, then gently pressed it to her heart. No more waiting, she said quietly. Days later, people in a nearby village spoke of something unusual. They said the old woman who lived at the edge of the forest passed away peacefully in her sleep, with a smile on her face, and in her hands she held a small wooden toy, worn, simple, but filled with a story no one else could see. Back in the forest, the paths remained the same. The trees stood tall. The river flowed quietly. But something had changed. The air felt lighter, warmer, as if a long, unfinished story had finally reached its end. And somewhere, beyond what we can see, a boy and a girl walked side by side. No time, no distance, no waiting, just peace.